So this is the debate between Tyler Bluntman and Victoria Hammett about abortion. For context, for a lot of you guys, because a lot of people don't know this, Tyler is very... So I'm pro-choice. I've had conversations with Tyler. About this. I'm personally pro-choice. You know, I've talked to Tyler about it. The thing is that Tyler has an advantage over Victoria in this context, in this topic, rather, for a lot of reasons. The biggest one is, and this is like kind of like fundamental, the biggest one is because Tyler spends a lot of time coming up with anti-abortion arguments. From a debate perspective, Tyler knows more about his topic than Victoria knows about hers. Maybe that's changed, but I know Tyler has like a literal PDF full of arguments and counter arguments to particular talking points. So he's got quite a bit going on top of her. You know, Victoria, very intelligent young woman, very intelligent person. Let's not even talk about her sex, gender, whatever. Very intelligent individual. The thing is that when it comes to like mainstream narratives, I notice this a lot, especially when it comes to abortion. People on the side that's more socially acceptable tend to not have very defined perspectives on that particular topic, because you don't need to, right? You go out and be like, hey, I'm pro-choice, and then people are like, all right, whatever. Or you go out, hey, I'm pro-life. People are like, bad person. Then you have to like walk yourself out of a corner. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm pro-life, but because of this. And then you have to appeal to people. So most people who are pro-life, in my experience, are generally like better about like advocating for it. So yeah, whatever. Let's just shut the fuck up, Papa Gut, and let's get into this goddamn segment. I know you guys want me to shut the hell up, blah, blah, blah.
Versus pro-choice, and we're starting right now.
For context, I was supposed to narrate or do this debate here, this conversation, whatever you want to call it, okay? I was supposed to moderate it, but I told Victoria I might not be able to do like Sunday. Maybe there's a better day. And she told Tyler I didn't want to do it. A little upset about it. Okay. Whatever. I don't care. I'm not even upset about it. Oh. Frick you, Victoria. Fucking meanie.
Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for another epic debate. If this is your first time here at Modern Day Debate, I'm your host, James Coons, and we are a neutral platform hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. And so I want to let you know, no matter what walk of life you are from, we hope you feel welcome, and we're glad you're here. Now,
really quick, I'm actually going to fast forward it. Like I'm gonna put it to like a little bit faster speed. He had a suit. This guy's very professional. I'm not going to give him any shit for that. He's a legit debate. You guys know I don't particularly care for debates. I like conversations. I like actually exploring. I don't like let me win style conversations. That's silly. I don't like debates. I like, whatever.
Now, if you're sick in the head like us and you like juicy, controversial debates, want to let you know we are thrilled that Matt Dillahunty and Dr. Josh will be debating Stuart and Cliff Nettle, a real-life father and son tag team debate team. And so that will be exciting. That's coming up this month. You'll see that at the bottom right of your screen. And so, cool. Hey, if you like those controversial topics, hit that subscribe button right now. That way you don't miss any of them. And we are also on podcasts. So if you like listening to the podcast, well, hey, you're in luck. We are on virtually every podcast app. Check us out. And if you cannot find us on your podcast app right now, you can tell us in the live chat and we will work to get on there for you. So for tonight's debate, it's going to be a good one, folks. We're very excited about this. We have two guests, you could say, who are titans or juggernauts from the world of TikTok. We're thrilled to have them joining us, and
who are seemingly got a little bit of sexual tension in there. Just saying.
Start introducing them first with Victoria. They're both linked in the description, folks. So if you'd like to hear more from our guests, you can hear more by clicking on those links that are in the description right now.
Click the links in our bio.
Victoria, thrilled to have you here with us. If you'd like to share, what can people expect to find at your link in the description?
Yeah, thank you so much. Interested, go ahead and click the link in the description to go to my TikTok. I talk about politics and whatever else I want to talk about. So go check me out there.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for being here again, Victoria. We appreciate it. And Tyler, thanks as well for being here. What can people expect to find at your link in the description?
I really just want to say, I do, and this is on record. I just want everybody to know this. I genuinely enjoy both of them. I would say I'm friends. I'm probably more friends with Tyler because I talk to him more. But I genuinely enjoy talking to both of these individuals. Victoria and Tyler are probably two of my favorite political TikTokers. Very, very intelligent individuals, both of them. I enjoy both. They actually are probably both my favorite political TikTokers. You know, I don't agree with Tyler on probably anything, but I appreciate like his level of intelligence and his actual like he puts in his due diligence. I agree with Victoria on a lot of things. I think she's very intelligent. I think that she's like one of the progressives who doesn't like virtue signal. I like she's a little like progressive and like a little, you know, she's got her like like, you know, like the progressive takes that like, you know, whatever, think that are a little leftist, but like, you know, I think she comes from a good place. So I like these two a lot. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh man, a whole bunch of no good on my TikTok. So,
and then yes, Clay is a simp for Victoria. Don't say that though.
Still on political TikTok, absolutely. You will definitely find more triggering topics on my TikTok, and definitely the least amount of filter that I can have without getting banned on TikTok. So, yeah, that's what you'll find over there.
You got it. So thanks so much to both of our guests for being with us. We're going to jump right into it. Victoria's going to start, and their opening statement is very flexible. So if they want to use as little as a minute or less, they can. That's up to them, and it can be as long as 10 minutes, and then we'll go right into the open conversation. If you happen to have a question, folks, feel free to fire that question into the old live chat. If you tag me with @ModernDayDebate, it makes it easier for me to get every question in that Q&A list. So with that, thanks so much. Victoria, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, James. Tyler, thank you for meeting with me again.
Really quick, I don't remember where the link is. If you guys can find that video that H Killer made that has the part of Clay in there simping, or excuse me, trying to grab Victoria's attention, I'd love to see it. I'd love to show it real quick. It's very funny.
Let's hope for this debate is just that both of our followers are able to step out of their echo chambers for a bit and hear more about the other side. And yeah, so thank you guys both for being here. On that note, I'll get right into it. As a society, we deprive various multicellular organisms of life and deem it ethical frequently, like plants, for example. We deem humans as beings of moral consideration because we're capable of consciousness and subjective experience. None of these defining attributes are present in fetuses within the first trimester of pregnancy. We know this because of their lack of development in brain structures related to all of the things that I just mentioned. For this reason, fetuses at this stage of development, being in the first trimester, are not beings of moral consideration, and depriving them of life cannot be considered murder or unethical. Legally, I do not think that a person should be required to use their body or their resources to host one of these non-sentient beings, which I personally do not think are beings of moral consideration.
All right, just my personal perspective. I think that, like, I feel like you're off to a bad start if your whole argument on it's like, hey, I don't think that like a potential human life is worth moral consideration. I totally think it is. I understand exactly why people are pro-life. I think that's a little rough. I think it's a little rough. Not my favorite start. I think it's kind of easy to deconstruct the idea of value of human life. You know, it's a rough start for me. This is my personal.
And with that, we will kick it over to Tyler for his opening statement as well. Thanks so much, Tyler. The floor is all yours.
Sure. So, yeah, so I'm basically pro-life for three reasons. One, I subscribe to personhood originating at conception. Two, I believe that all human persons, have the equal right to life. And then three, if an individual's voluntary actions force another person into a state of physical dependency, it would be immoral to remove that dependency if the result ended in the loss of that person's life. That's it. I'm done.
I had something to say about that, and like I just brain farted. This is the problem with Papa Gut. Is like I have my attention span is not great.
I believe that all human persons, have the equal right to life, and then three.
The first thing he said was the start of conception. So I think that just like on a fundamental level opens us up to have a conversation about how that's a cutoff point, and like realistically speaking, from the perspective of from I guess a perspective of cause and effect, I don't really know, or outcomes. There's nothing different between ejaculating on a girl's stomach and having an abortion. The sperm and egg are both wasted in both situations. So realistically speaking, same outcome. We want to establish that we're having conversations about what your particular cutoff point is. People talk about basically conception for pro-lifers. Other people have different perspectives. Mine's first trimester, generally speaking. I think it gives you enough time to decide whether you actually, find out if you're pregnant and then decide if you want to have an abortion. I understand that it's a, necessary evil. That's kind of my perspective. But if your argument is fundamental value of human life, what's stopping you from saying we should make sure that all women have all of their eggs impregnated? It's a potential human life. The only difference is the sperm hasn't met the egg, and in my opinion, unless you can make a solid argument that a soul enters a fetus once their sperm hits it, I don't really think that you have a whole lot. Also, don't ask me to do
voluntary actions force another person into a state of physical dependency. It would be immoral to remove that dependency if the result ended in the loss of that person's life. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you very much. We'll jump right into open conversation. And so long as it goes smooth, we'll just kind of let it go where it goes. Otherwise, if it starts to get a little bit too rocky, we'll just break it into 2 or 3 minute intervals. And so thanks so much. The floor is all yours.
So do you want to ask me a question or do you want me to ask you a question first?
You know what? Let's get right into it. I'll go on your third point of why you are pro-life. Just this idea that if you voluntarily let someone into your home, you don't have the right to or not your home, sorry. But if you willingly, why don't you restate that third point? Actually, I don't want to misinterpret what you said.
Yeah, so if an individual's voluntary actions force another person into a state of physical dependency, it's immoral to remove that dependency knowing that they would die.
Okay. And I mean, are you comfortable with me referencing our previous debate?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, so I remember in our previous debate, you mentioned like if a child comes into your home, maybe you welcome a child into your home, right? Do you have the right to then kill that child? And I was basically saying no, but you have the right to evict that child from your home. What I would like to say on that point as well is,
I hope that she expands on it, because like if we can make this like completely we just completely parallel the analysis, the womb and the house are the same thing, and the eviction of the fetus is the same as the eviction of the child. All right, you don't have to kill the child to evict them, but fundamentally speaking, you have the right to push a child out of your house by force. You don't have the right to kill them, of course, but still, fundamentally, it's still consistent. You don't have to kill a child to make them leave your house.
All of these analogies, from my perspective, it doesn't make sense to compare a sentient being and a non-sentient being, because that is the reason I would deem someone a being of moral consideration. That is what gives someone personhood to me, is this consciousness. So while I do not agree that these situations would be morally equivalent, I want to kind of work with you on that example and kind of explain why I don't think that you should be pro-life in this regard either. Because as I understand, you tend to subscribe to a lot of libertarian ideology, right? I've kind of gathered that from your content. More or less, yeah. So you're basically small government type of guy. Is that kind of fair to say?
Yeah.
So how do you feel in general about positive rights and positive obligations?
What do you mean?
So basically there are 2 types of rights, positive rights and negative rights. Negative rights are freedom from something. So our freedom of religion is the freedom we have to practice without interference. Positive rights, on the other hand, are our right to certain things, but it requires something of someone else. So whenever I say that healthcare is a human right, in a lot of ways, that is a positive right, because I would be saying someone's right to healthcare is there.
I just want to read this. I've never heard this before. A positive right is a right to be subjected to an action or another person or group. Positive rights permit or oblige action in relation to the 3 generations of human rights. Negative rights are often associated with the first generation, while positive. I have no fucking idea what this is. Let's see. Positive right. Recipient right requires others to provide goods and services. Okay. Negative right requires no interference from others, life, liberty. Okay. Abortion, government pay. Okay. So positive. Okay. These are weird. Okay. I've never heard that before. The categorization. Okay. Okay. I think that she's going into a body autonomy thing. Sure.
Their right, and they're going to need something from their community in order to have that right. So that's a positive right. And this idea that you have of, I remember in our last thing, if someone wanders into your home, do you have the right to deprive them of life? And
let me interject for just a second.
Yeah.
So just because I don't think that it's almost like we're going to go into bodily autonomy or something like that. But the thing is that you don't believe that it's a person anyway, right?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But
okay.
I do want to level with you though.
Okay. Well, we don't have to do that. So let's just, instead of getting there, why don't we just focus on the personhood first?
I mean,
what
yeah,
makes a person
I would.
a person?
Well, I would like to kind of complete my point because I think it would be helpful for your kind of like small government audience. So my biggest thing is that when you're asking a woman to host a baby,
I will say that was a bit of an attempt at pivoting. I don't know why.
You are saying that the right to life is a positive right. Is that fair to say? The right to that fetus's right to life is a positive right. It's requiring something of the mother, right?
Requiring what of the mother?
Her body, her resources,
I guess by this
food, nutrients.
Logic?
Yeah, a mother is obligated to provide those things for her child. Yeah.
Right, but again, this isn't a child yet. This is a fetus. This is a separate entity.
I'm not educated enough on positive.
You said that you were going to grant me leeway.
I'm not educated enough on positive versus negative rights to like assign that.
And say that
okay, personhood, but I don't think it's necessarily fair to say, to assign like an age to that being necessarily because it's not equivalent to a child. It's as equivalent to a child as it would be to an adult. If that makes sense.
By this logic, I would imagine that like it's a positive right to also take care of your like 3-year-old kid.
Makes sense.
Okay, you could say like you could call it a fetus, but to me that's a person. Are you okay? So in this question that you're asking me, basically, is what I'm asking you is, are you saying that it is a person for your argument that you're about to make, or it isn't?
I'm saying that even though you believe that it is a person, you should not necessarily believe in forcing a woman to give up her resources for that non-sentient, non-conscious being.
Okay.
So
you're talking about bodily autonomy. Okay.
Bodily autonomy in a way. But I do want to clarify that I would treat a fetus differently than a child because of sentience and consciousness, just for my future argument. I don't want to subscribe completely to the bodily autonomy argument because I don't think it summarizes my position fully enough. But I guess my point to you is that I find
I'm so sorry, but like if it's not going to summarize it, then shouldn't we focus on personhood first? Then doesn't that make sense?
Well, I mean, you asked me where I wanted to start. This is where I want to start.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I guess my point to you is I find it interesting. I'm not even like I want to make this very clear throughout this whole debate. I'm not trying to debunk you here. I'm just trying to get an understanding of your ideology because from where I am standing, you don't typically believe in positive rights. You don't typically believe that a being is worthy of something if it requires something of another being. And so that's why I'm a little bit confused in your pro-life stance and the pro-life stance of many libertarians because it does seem to be very rooted in the idea of like rights, human rights, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so when it comes to like bodily autonomy or whatever, I just believe that, that a person has a moral obligation to accept the consequences of their actions if they consciously and voluntarily act on them. I mean, do you disagree?
Well, see, a question that I would want to pose to you, and I'm sorry, I'm having internet problems. I would bring up the name of the philosopher who posed this question. But in regards to your kind of like evictionism argument.
Victoria's always having internet problems. Every time she has conversations, it's bizarre. We got to get Victoria a computer.
Say that there was an apocalyptic storm raging out.
I just asked you a question. You didn't answer my question.
Well, I'm sorry. I don't mean to answer a question with a question, but I'm trying to just repeat.
It was a yes or no. It wasn't even.
What the fuck question did he ask?
Like what I said or no?
Well, obviously, I disagree with your stance on abortion. That's why we're here.
Well, no. Well, it doesn't even have to be necessary to abortion. It's a general question, right? So, do you believe that people have a moral obligation to accept the consequences of their actions if they consciously and voluntarily act on them?
I would say that that's just too general and too.
Just say generally, yeah, of course. Like you. Right. So generally, yes. The answer to that is yes. When you engage in an action, you do also have an understanding of the consequences. But Victoria could say, "Hey, for sure." But just because I engage in the action of driving a car, and just because I understand that there might be a chance I get hit by another car, doesn't mean that I'm chill with that outcome. Right? You go with that. Like I would go with that argument. It's like just because the outcome exists doesn't mean that it's a justifiable outcome. Now, when it comes to abortion, me personally, when of course, there's a risk of getting pregnant. I would say be safer when you engage, because I don't think that we should normalize abortions. I think that they're like kind of like a necessary evil in a last resort. But yeah, that's how you would counter that. That's how you would kind of go against that.
Broad of a statement to make.
Okay, if you're playing soccer in your neighborhood and you accidentally kick a ball through a neighbor's window, are you absolved from those consequences?
No, not necessarily. But if someone wanders, if someone opens your unlocked door and comes into your house, are they now?
It's not the same. It's an analogy.
Because you left the door unlocked, are they able to just live in your house?
Well, that's disanalogous to.
It's not disanalogous because that would be suffering.
Let me finish my point. Sorry. So it's disanalogous to abortion or pregnancy in general, because when it comes to pregnancy, you force that person into your home. So if you were to say yes, well, Tyler, can you force someone into your home and then kill them if they don't leave, and be like, no, that's immoral. You cannot force someone into your home and then kill them.
Well, so here's the thing, right? So let's just go with a pure analogous. You like that intentionally? Yeah. So if you have a person come over with their kid into your house, you totally can be like, all right, it's time to leave, dog. Get out. You don't have to kill the kid, but it's the same analogy. Like the person, like, yeah, you can apply the same logic to like, hey, I'm inviting you into your home. Now I'm asking you to leave. It's like, I'd be like, it's like, yeah, you can come over my house with your kid, and they like leave the kid there. And it's like, well, I got to take care of this kid now. You know what I mean? Making that argument there.
Okay, so let me bring up this analogy then.
Do you agree with that I just said at least?
Well, no, I don't necessarily, and here's why. I don't think that someone should be, even if, because again, our view on pregnancy is very different too. For me, a more similar analogy to using like birth control and condoms.
You didn't force anybody into your home. What? What are you talking about? Oh, I'm gonna lose, Tyler. You make me fucking lose.
And then getting pregnant would be something more like leaving
your
door
Tyler's
unlocked and
here. He likes
to
hang out
because it's not intentional. It's not like these people were trying to get pregnant, just like you'd be trying to force someone into your home.
No,
does that make sense?
It wouldn't be the same. No, it wouldn't be the same because somebody. So somebody coming into your home that would be somebody made that decision to come through your home, right?
Yeah, I guess in a way.
Okay, so I would say that it's not analogous. Like if you want to make it like. Okay,
sorry.
Well, hold on. So I could say this. So this is what I'm saying. Like to get into like the bodily autonomy argument is I would really just be arguing that it is a person.
Really quick to that like pregnancy isn't inviting someone to your home; it's forcing them. So like pregnancy is forcing someone into your home, right? So a parent would force a child to go to someone else's house in the same way that somebody would force their sperm into somebody and then they get pregnant. I know the way you're using force, you're not trying to bring up like sexual assault, but like in this situation, a kid isn't going to be like, let's go to the house. Like you totally, like my mom would drag me to like, right. So when I was younger, my mom would take me to work all the time and in the office. I hated it, but she would force me into the office. That doesn't mean that she's allowed to leave me in the office, right? It's not their responsibility. You know, like, so in that analogy, like, yeah, the kid's being forced somewhere. So is the baby. I understand. But yeah, that's how I would go about that one.
You don't believe that it's a person. So, right. I mean, even if I overcome this, you would just say, well, it's not a person anyway, so it doesn't matter. So, like, that's why I'm saying I think that we have to start at personhood before we get into body.
I guess I want to ask
because
question.
Last thing.
What the fuck's the point of this moderator? Like, okay, so like you guys have a professional fucking moderator here, and he's not even like, okay, let's start here. I don't know.
Because
well, yeah, we have it on like 25% increase speed.
If you're talking about bodily autonomy, which I mean, you said that in our previous debate, I want to know if you still hold this value. You believe that abortion should be legal up until the 18th week, right? Or first trimester.
First trimester, yeah.
Okay, and everything after that, and I mean, unless there's like some crazy rare circumstance, you would believe that it should be illegal. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so when you're talking about bodily autonomy, it's not going to matter, Victoria, because bodily autonomy is based off of property rights and the right to like you own yourself.
Okay. I understand.
So
see here, I understand what you're saying, right? So this is one of the things, like you can't really lead with bodily autonomy when it comes to a fetus, because like a fetus is a potential human life. You could apply bodily autonomy to like a potential human life. I mean, like that's why I don't like that as like a leading argument. I don't think body autonomy is a great starter argument. All right, it's great after we establish why we should be able to get abortions, as to why the mother should be the one to choose over the father. But I don't think it's like a great, like if your whole entire abortion pro-choice stance is like bodily autonomy.
So
I don't think you're hitting.
Can absolutely compare that to an actual person, to what you would believe is an actual person, because bodily autonomy isn't just it extends to persons, right?
Right. No.
So I think that we have to start with personhood before we go to bodily autonomy.
I agree, but the analogy, because here's the issue here is that you believe that it is a person. I believe that it's not. So if I preach my side, I'm only preaching to my audience. I want to kind of talk to you and your audience. I want to know
why it's a person. Why you? I'm sorry. I want to know why you believe it's not a person.
It's really weird. Yeah, we should. The moderators should have been saying, yeah, that's a good place to start. Like, let's start with personhood. It's probably a good start. I think that's a great start. It's like, right? Why you're pro-life or pro-choice is probably the best way to start when you're having a conversation about pro-life or pro-choice.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. We started with your stance. We can go back to your stance, and we can start with my stance if you'd like. But I would really like to talk about the analogy I have where I kind of consider that it is a person.
You guys fucked up. You guys totally fucked up. You should have had me moderate, dude.
And for your audience. Just an analogy I have for you, a question, just to test your logical consistency.
Only because like it's a little inconcise where we're at right now. We're kind of all over the place. You know what I'm saying?
Question?
Sure.
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
Tyler. Fun thought experiment, everyone. Let's all get a little bit less serious. Okay. Well, it's actually not a fun thought experiment at all. It's very sad. But let's say that there's like apocalyptic storm raging outside, death, despair everywhere. Sucks, right?
Okay.
Some would say that that's on the brink of happening today.
I gotta tell you, the more I read the news, the scarier it gets. But okay, so
you
that's
guys are having less fun here.
So do you think, even if you invite a person into your home at first, do you think that you are required you should be legally required to keep that person in your home and share your resources with that person as opposed to kicking them out whenever you please. When would you deem it? So like basically, as soon as you invite that person into your home, do you think that you should be forced to let them stay there, knowing that when they kick them out, they will die?
This is a great question. I want to answer first. So, first of all, legal is a bad argument because this is an apocalypse, so law is kind of dead. So now we're talking about the morality of it. So morally, if you have 10 people in the house and one person needs to go to provide resources in some capacity in this apocalyptic situation, it might actually be morally justifiable to kick somebody out of the house. If this person poses a threat, that could be another reason to kick that person out of the house. I don't know.
But do you think that you should legally be forced to keep that person, that human being, in your home? Because once you kick them out, like, they will die, even though you have to share your resources with them. Do you think that should be legally required?
Okay, so I'd say that's disanalogous to abortion. I'm going to tell you why for two reasons. One, again, you didn't just invite them.
You're no fun, Tyler.
There's a distinct difference.
You're no fun, dude. This is a fun scenario.
Now, whether you meant for that to happen or not is irrelevant. You still forced that life into being. You force them into your womb, and then you force them into a state of dependency on you. So not only did you force them there, but then you force them into a state of dependency. So in your analogy, to make it more analogous, you would have to say that instead of inviting, well, one...
Hey, listen, it's an apocalypse. Legalities are dead. Morality reigns supreme, you know?
Them in, and then second, it's a baby, right? Or at least to make it the most analogous as possible, you wouldn't like say it's just a general person, is like an adult or a teenager. It's an actual baby, which is important. It's an important distinction because, like, if somebody is trespassing on your property, you can hold
well, I mean, if we actually had fun and went with this analogy, Tyler, I would be like, yeah, no, actually, babies would be people that you would generally keep over other people, unless the apocalypse had something to it where there was like wild rabid animals attracted to sound and your baby wouldn't shut up. Then maybe morally you could suppress the child.
Adolescents, you can hold teenagers, you can hold adults morally and legally accountable for those things. But when it comes to a baby or a pre-baby, you cannot hold them. They're not able to be held morally
the quiet place,
for any of their actions. So it's it's completely disanalogous.
Eat the fuck out of that baby.
And see, I think that this is our issue here, and this is why
I can make like a very clear analogy
just to be sure that.
Well, no, it's okay. I'm just wanting to explore your ideology because, in my personal opinion, I view it as a bit of a special pleading fallacy to only view the right to life as a positive right for babies and children and not adults. Because as I understand, you do not view right to life as a positive right for adults and other human beings. Human beings outside of
positive right or negative right. What I'm saying is that all
it's a common philosophy in the libertarian conversation.
Shut up. I'm not a libertarian, but second,
shut up, baby.
What I'm saying is that every person has the equal right to life.
I'll beat the fuck out of you.
Right. Every human being has an equal right to life.
Yeah, every human person has the equal right to life, yes.
Right, and under your circumstance, this would be a positive right to life where it might require something of
you can
someone
call
else.
Yeah, you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah, you know, that's a good point. When you get Victoria pregnant, maybe you'll change your views on abortion.
Saying is that as long as it doesn't change my argument.
Here's another weird analogy. Stick with me, I promise it'll make sense. But let's say I'm a sexually active female doing my thing, and I am regularly taking the abortion pill. And so I'd never know if I'm pregnant, whatever, I'm just always taking it. So I might be giving myself abortions. Would you deem that unethical? And would you say that should be illegal?
Say your question again, I'm sorry.
So basically, I'm sexually active. I'm taking the abortion pill all the time.
Did that upset you when she said she's sexually active, Tyler? And you were just like, I wish it was me. Like Clay does.
I never know if I'm pregnant. I'm just taking the abortion pill. And if I have an abortion, I have an abortion. Whatever. I don't know if I'm having one, but I'm just doing it. Do you think that should be illegal? And I promise this will make sense. Taking an abortion pill all the time. I don't know if I'm giving myself an abortion, but
That's an interesting argument. I don't think it's necessarily practical because I think the abortion pill is really harmful on your body. I imagine Tyler would maintain consistency between the abortion pill and like a bigger abortion. Plan B makes more sense, but Plan B. I'm curious, Tyler. So since Plan B prevents the fertilization of the egg, I would assume you're fine with Plan B because your big point of contention seems to specifically be the merger of the sperm and the egg. If I'm wrong, correct me. If I'm right,
it very well could be. Do you
give
think
me
that
a
should be
pog in
illegal
the chat.
for me to do?
I don't think that it matters if you. Well, for one, what does the abortion pill do?
The abortion pill just expels the embryo from your uterus and kills it. Essentially, if you believe that life starts at conception, you should be against the abortion pill. Yeah,
I would be against that. I would say the abortion pill in general, though. So for one, so when it comes to the abortion pill,
well, really quick, I'm so sorry.
I'm a little indifferent, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah, no, I genuinely don't mean to interrupt you. The abortion pill isn't the most important part of this analogy. The point is that I could be giving myself an abortion and unaware. You would deem that morally unethical because I would be depriving that being of life, whether I knew it or not.
I was okay with Plan B based on what you said, but I read that Plan B could also stop implantation, which is after conception. What is implantation? What does that mean? I'm just confused. Like, why would that come after? I imagine what is implantation? What the what is that? In humans, implantation is a stage of pregnancy at which the embryo adheres to the wall of the uterus. Okay, understand what you're saying. So what you're saying is that what Plan B does is it doesn't necessarily stop the sperm from connecting to the egg. It stops the egg from attaching to the walls. So then by that logic, you're not okay with Plan B because it yeets the baby out of it.
And you should.
Well,
you
you're
think
intentionally
that should
doing
be
it,
legal. Right? Because I know that I could be getting an abortion. Okay, yeah. Okay. So my question then is, why are you against a federal mask mandate? So
you're okay with, okay, wait, hold on. So you're saying you're okay with Plan B because it's a natural thing for the egg to not attach to the uterus in every situation? Is that what you're saying?
You know that you could possibly have coronavirus. I know this isn't going to make sense at first. I beg you to just stay with me. You know, I'm asking you to not...
It doesn't have anything to do with abortion.
No, but it does, because again, I personally do believe that once someone is given personhood, the right to life is a positive right for me. If your life requires something of me, like wearing a mask, I'm okay with that because it's a positive right to life. You seem to believe that the right to life is a positive right as well, meaning if it requires something of another individual, that's okay, so long as that person who has been granted personhood can have their right to life. So my question is, knowing that the coronavirus is extremely deadly, knowing that you might have it and not know it, knowing that wearing a mask could save someone's life, you still don't think that the government should be able to step in and mandate a mask? Because in that instance, you are showing that you...
I'm saying I'm different because we can't medically determine that a pill is stopping conception. Oh, implantation. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, what does a pill stop? I know Mama Guts in here. Tell me, does a pill stop one or the other?
You don't believe that life, the right to life, is a positive right, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I also don't believe that the government should get involved when it comes to seatbelts, even if somebody decides to get into your car, right? I don't believe that you should do that either. So I don't believe that the government should infringe on things like it's unnecessary. Right?
Exactly.
So when it comes to mass mandates specifically, I'm completely for private businesses instituting. I'm completely for individuals that want to do it. I wear a mask when I go out there. I mean, mostly because they force me to do it. But still, yeah, I'm completely okay with them doing it. When it comes to the government not imposing it, I just feel like it's an unnecessary use of government force, right? So,
okay, I understand what you're saying, Tyler. Okay, yeah, so it seems like your big point of contention is the sperm hitting the egg. Yeah.
Even if
why would it be necessary? Because here's the thing. So hold on, I'm thinking this out loud as I'm saying it.
This conversation's a fucking mess. Oh shit.
You don't know that somebody has the coronavirus, right?
Well, if you don't
unless
know,
they get tested, right? Or unless the government uses even more tyrannical force and forces people to get tested. So you don't know that I have it. And the biggest issue that I have is that it's not even so much the force itself.
Oh, wait a minute, I
mean, it is,
whatever.
but like what I'm more worried about is just that, or more, I don't know, like my issue with is that there's nothing stopping you from doing anything that you need to protect yourself. Like if there was some reason that like the mass population couldn't do something to protect themselves, and I would say, okay, then maybe it makes sense for the government.
I guess the mask is analogous to fucking condoms, no?
To step in and say, okay, you need to do mass mandates. But there's not actually anything stopping you, Victoria. There's nothing stopping.
Plan B works like other birth control pills to prevent pregnancy. Plan B acts primarily by stopping the release of an egg from the ovary. It may prevent the union of a sperm and egg. If fertilization does occur, Plan B may prevent a fertilized egg from attaching to the womb. Okay, fair enough.
Stopping you from getting a $5 mask. There's nothing stopping you from wearing long sleeve shirts, wearing gloves, using hand sanitizer. There's nothing stopping you from doing those things. So because that they're, I mean, like practically speaking. So like if there's nothing practically speaking,
I would imagine this argument could go to like basically if we, people not using protection and being safe in their sexual engagements is the same thing as people not wearing a mask. So I guess by that, yeah, right. So then you would suffer the consequences. If you got the coronavirus and you don't wear a mask, it's your fault. Just like if you got pregnant, it's your fault. But then if you want to keep going, you would treat the coronavirus by trying to get rid of it, and you could treat abortions, or rather pregnancy, by aborting it.
That would stop you from doing those things, then it's an unnecessary use of government force to make me do something to basically what you're saying.
COVID equals sperm
the whole
egg.
point is that you don't want to inconvenience yourself more, so you need to inconvenience me.
No, not necessarily. The issue here is that PPE is not 100% effective, and unfortunately,
Again, I don't want to go too far off into this because this is a limited
it's a
debate.
separate
This has nothing to do with abortion.
This is something that I want to emphasize to you, though, because there are essential workers out there who you know, even with PPE,
Bro,
they are running the risk of getting the coronavirus.
If you just watch this fucking guy's face, it's crazy.
And dying from it. And so I guess my issue
looks
with
like he's
your
looking at
logical
porn
inconsistency
while
in
you guys
terms
are
of
talking.
positive rights. Like, you believe that a woman should be able to give up her body.
Just saying that something's logically inconsistent doesn't make it so, Victoria.
Okay, well, you believe that a woman should be able to give up her body and her resources in order to
It's a fucking gadfight already.
That this fetus has life, but you're not even willing.
The fetus that she forced there, yes.
Oh, hold on, you're not even willing to put on a. I mean, maybe you personally are willing to put on a mask, but you don't think the
that's
government
not
should be
nice.
able to
Do you think that there's a correlation between bald and saying stupid things? That's not nice. I'm fucking bald.
Legally mandate masks for people who choose to go out, choose to be around other people. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Tell me what's stopping you. Victoria, just answer my question very, very simply. What is stopping you from wearing a mask, wearing a long sleeve shirt, wearing gloves, or using hand sanitizer?
I already explained that. Nothing,
okay.
Taylor, but it's not 100% effective.
Then you're not. Then you're not pointing out. Then what I'm saying is, that you aren't pointing out a logical inconsistency. You're just talking for the sake of talking.
All right, let's just to slow it down.
It's such a mess. I'm having trouble keeping up what the fuck you guys are even talking about. Yeah, I don't know. Because, we said before, okay, the mask isn't 100% effective, neither is birth control. You get the coronavirus equal to getting a baby. You treat the coronavirus, you treat the baby. Maybe you treat the baby with abortions. That's where I would go.
Sorry, it is what it is. I had to be blunt, you're just talking.
No, it is a logical inconsistency.
Let's give Victoria about 2 minutes to respond, and then I promise we'll come right back to you, Tyler.
Okay.
All right.
If we can reel this back into abortion, it would be great. But
I appreciate that, James. My issue, Tyler, what I'm trying to emphasize, and I promise I'm not trying to take too much time away from the abortion debate because it's important to talk about, but you and most small government people who do believe in abortion restrictions tend to not advocate for the positive.
I thought that you had a super professional moderator. This is a fucking poop slinging festival, Tyler.
National health care, for example, and again, I don't want to bring up a million topics here all at once. I'm sorry. But just it seems that for the most part, you guys are okay with people dying so long as it doesn't require anything.
Okay, so for one, can you not generalize?
Tyler,
can you not generalize
about
conservatives?
2 minutes still. So
I apologize. Oh no, but that's a fair point.
You're not debating all conservatives. You're debating.
Tyler, we do have, like I said, we're gonna give it about 2 minutes.
Sorry.
Interval, and then we'll come back to you.
My apologies.
I apologize. I shouldn't have generalized all conservatives.
Tyler, you should write down what she's saying when she's talking. Only because if you do these types of styles, which makes sense, you should be okay, write it down, then respond. That's what Kamala Harris.
I guess my issue here with when you're against the government making a mask mandate, but then you're also in support of the government putting restrictions on women's bodies, that is a logical inconsistency because you believe that the right to life is a positive right so long as it is the woman making the sacrifice for that life as opposed to you just wearing a mask. And I think a lot of pro-lifers do tend to agree with that as well. Maybe that's generalizing again, but I do see a lot of pro-life discourse talking about how it is important to wear masks just because PPE is not entirely effective. Like if you're wearing a mask, it's not blocking coronavirus. It's just preventing your spit droplets from getting out, if that makes sense. And I could go on a whole speech about that, but I'm not going to. So I'll just go ahead and end it there.
Okay, 2 or 3 minutes from Tyler. Go ahead.
Okay, so again, it's not a logical inconsistency. You just keep saying that over and over to try and gaslight the people in the comments into believing that
trigger words.
A logical inconsistency.
Trigger warning, gaslighting.
What is stopping someone? This is my rationale for it, right? And I actually told you that it's okay, well, if there was something, practically speaking, that was stopping the masses from obtaining masks or doing whatever to protect other citizens, I'd say okay, then we could visit that, right? I'd have to really see what it was, but we could visit that. But when I asked you, okay, what is stopping you if it's me and you, what is stopping you as a person from protecting yourself? Can you get a mask? Can you wear a long sleeve shirt? Can you wear gloves? Can you hand sanitize? Can you constantly do those things that you need to do to protect yourself? And when you said, well, no, there's nothing stopping me from doing it, that's it. You just there's no reason for me to have to wear a mask or for government to force me to wear a mask if there is nothing, practically speaking, from preventing you of doing what you need to do to protect yourself. That's the point that I made. So it's not.
Yeah, I'm not for the government forcing it, but I am for businesses being able to have whatever standards they want. But I would say, just as a general point, is that we do live in a society. And one of the parts of living in society is you do give up individual freedoms in order to better the entirety of society. Right? It's the same reason why, if you live you can go live in the forest and you can just, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You can run around naked and, you piss yourself. It doesn't really matter. You can piss yourself in real life, but you can run around naked and, shoot guns in the air. It doesn't really matter. Once you decide to live with society and you decide to live with a bunch of other people and coexist, there's obviously certain concessions you have to make. So yeah,
logically inconsistent, especially when you try to you're being disingenuous also like, oh well,
you
controlling women's bodies,
you can't piss
you
yourself
know that
now.
that's not my argument. Like my argument
you get
is
my
what
point.
it is, and we can get into it. Is that woman forced that person into a state of dependency. That is my argument, which you have not attacked at all during this debate. You've just been trying to go into other things like healthcare and like these things to try and or just bring up your analogies that I've already proven multiple times are disanalogous. You don't know how to accurately even analogize anything. So I'm going to give you a proper analogy since you want to stick on bodily autonomy, and then I really want to get into personhood because it is what it is.
Wait, really quick, you just said a lot of things.
Hey, I still got my 3 minutes. That's what they say. That's what the rules are.
It's about 47 seconds left.
Okay, cool. So let me give you this thought experiment. So let's say there are human cells in a jar. Now you don't have to interact with these cells, but you want to.
You don't understand,
you know
Tyler.
there's a
Okay,
chance
Victoria needs him to protect her. He needs her to whiten. She needs him to white knight her. That's why he didn't interrupt for you. Okay, you got it. He just disrespects women. He doesn't think women are equal or can't stand up for themselves. That's why he interjects when you interrupt her. When she interrupts you, you're a strong man. All right, so you don't need it. That's his logic.
Will physically attach to
I'm
you
assigning
and create
that
a new person that will be completely dependent on you for survival. Now, you decide, anyway, go ahead. You're going to wear gloves. You're going to protect yourself, whatever you're going to do. But you decide to play with these cells anyway. Lo and behold, these cells, they attach to you and they create that new person that is completely dependent on you. Did you or did you not force that person or force that being into a state of dependency? Yes or no?
Sure.
Okay, so now you are saying that is still, it would not be immoral to end that being's life, even though you forced them to be there in the first place.
If it's just an unconscious blob on me, like I don't understand how that would be different than if it was.
Well, hold on. You okay? So you're flip flopping. You're going back and forth, right? So in the beginning, you're like, oh well, I want to grant you some leeway here so that we can talk about. I'm going to argue it as if it is a person, but then when I actually give you an analogy that's really going to challenge you, then you just revert back to, well, it's not a person anyway.
No.
And I predicted that in the beginning. I was like, Victoria, you're just going to say that it's not. You're just going to say
what's happening. I couldn't even tell you. This is a shit show.
Tyler, so what we want to do is just because we had roughly those 2 or 3 minute intervals, and then we kind of went back into open conversation, and I want to give Victoria a chance to respond to your last 3 minute section and also the points that you brought up since then.
Right. So the issue here and what we're talking about now is that we're shifting to, I think it was your second point, dependency.
I'm
still kind of talking about just like the right to life, and that is that a positive right versus negative right. So that is where I'm kind of comfortable discussing the bodily autonomy argument. But if we're gonna if we're gonna merge into other aspects of your argument, then I would like to talk about consciousness because that is my main argument. Additionally, back in regards to the conversation about PPE and wearing masks, I don't think that you understand how effectual. Why this attitude? I genuinely want our audiences to get something out of this.
I didn't say
anyways. I don't think
grimace?
you fully understand how PPE works. If you wear a mask, you're protecting others. It doesn't protect yourself. So someone can be fully decked out in PPE and still not be completely safe. So in the same way that you view, and having an abortion as forcing someone into your body and then killing them, I would argue that you leaving your house knowing that you may or may not have coronavirus, knowing that you may or may not be able to give it to someone who is wearing PPE, you could knowingly kill them, and you don't believe that the government should prevent that from happening. So I do view that as a logical inconsistency. Because as you said, it also doesn't matter if you don't know for sure if you are killing or are not killing that person. You could be killing that person. And just like you thought that it was wrong in the abortion analogy, you should also think that it's wrong in the mask wearing analogy. And that is why I viewed it as a logical inconsistency.
I imagine if we continued on to this argument, you can make the argument like, hey, listen, coronavirus has like a 1% death rate, probably less than that, right? Abortion, I think, has like almost 100% death rate, right?
All right, Tyler, we'll give you 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, so I don't like we're getting real circular here.
A little less. I think that there are people, abortion survivors.
So, like I said, when it comes to, and this is the last time I'm going to talk about this mask thing because again, like I feel like what you're doing is trying to dodge the inevitable of like strictly abortion, and you're trying to go into all of these other like. Hold on, let me finish. You're trying to go into all of these other things that it doesn't even matter. So again, like I said, if you are, I'm sorry, what was the last thing that you said? Just so I can remember, what was the last thing you said?
Basically, even if someone is decked out in PPE, they can still get coronavirus and die from you not wearing a mask.
Okay. So tell me what's the data on that?
So the data is that personal mask wearing actually does reduce. Hold on, let me see if
more specifically, not just mask wearing. So specifically to what I said earlier. So if you had if you had everything that you needed as far as hand sanitizer, you were covered from head to toe in masks, and your eyes were covered, your ears, whatever was covered.
Right.
What are the chances of you getting COVID that way versus and if someone isn't wearing a mask versus if someone is wearing a mask and you're not decked out that way?
Well, as of right now, as I kind of explained, I can't remember if we were streaming during this. I'm having internet trouble, so I wouldn't be able to look up a specific study for you, but it doesn't matter what the percent chance is, because what we do know is that by not wearing a mask, you could be condemning to someone to death, even if you're not 100% certain that you are.
Still, there is nothing.
Like you said, again, in the analogy,
there's nothing stopping you.
Even
there's
if
nothing
I'm
stopping you, right?
Right, just as there's nothing stopping me from using birth control and condoms. So long as I'm using birth control and condoms, should I be able to just
as long as you are using a type of
abortion? Should I be able to
using a type of contraception that is not directly influencing implantation or stopping anything after fertilization, then I am fine with that.
No, but here's the thing. I don't think
you're... So it's about 2 minutes. So I do want to give Victoria 2 minutes uninterrupted, and then we'll go back to...
To be fair, like, we kind of were... That was kind of like open. It wasn't just like my side, right?
It was still within your 2 minutes.
Okay.
It's...
If we could...
This is a weird conversation, Tyler. I don't know what the fuck's going on right now. It's like chaotic.
Hold on 1 second. One of the challenges is I'm okay with you guys asking questions kind of like a cross-examination style. Totally okay with me. The only trick is that it is kind of getting there is some overlap in terms of who's talking at the same time, and so that's why we're
I will. Okay, can I say this? James? So I will absolutely try to refrain myself from interrupting Victoria if we can have more of like an open style.
I'm okay with that if
she agrees.
There's less interrupting.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go
now, what I would implore Victoria to do is to navigate this into her consciousness argument, because we're now like 40-something minutes in. So I would implore her to navigate there.
You guys haven't really said a whole lot in 40 minutes. I'll just say it.
I respect this argument, but I would also appreciate it if you don't tell me how to argue, because I think I am coming upon a logical inconsistency of yours that you seem to be running from for some reason. The point is, the equivalencies in this analogy would be wearing PPE is pretty equivalent to condoms and birth control, right? It could prevent like a person wearing like a mask, like sure it could, or wearing gloves and hand sanitizer, sure it could prevent them from getting sick, but just like, I might still get pregnant even if I'm on birth control and using condoms. If I were to then do something more intentional that could kill this other person inside me, which I would equate to refusing to wear a mask, even though you know that could kill someone else. I mean, would say that that's a logical inconsistency that you
probably could have just been like, hey, in both scenarios, aren't we trying to mitigate death as much as possible? So you'd be like, hey, coronavirus, we wear masks to mitigate death. Abortions, we mitigate abortions to mitigate death. You probably could have just said that. You could have said like, hey, if the goal of you wearing a mask is to reduce death, then shouldn't we not have abortions? You probably could have just said that, and then we'd have to have conversations of what constitutes a life or whatever, which is what we're trying to get back to. It's just like a weird point that we're
don't think that the government should be able to step in and make you wear a mask.
You're comparing the intentional killing versus the possible killing?
I would say
because for COVID, just to be clear.
Let me answer your question. Let me answer your question. If
this is the last part of my question.
You asked the question, Tyler, so let's give her a chance to actually answer it.
If you leave your house knowing that you could give someone else COVID and kill them, that is the exact same as me taking the abortion pill knowing that I could be pregnant and I could kill a fetus.
No.
Yes, it is. Because in both situations, the person doesn't really know for sure. Just as we talked about earlier, we can do the rollback.
It's not.
You don't think... So again, you believe in positive rights if it's inside a woman, if it's requiring something of her, but you don't believe in positive rights if it's requiring something from you as a citizen. You don't believe that it is the person on the street just walking or whatever, the person who's high risk. You don't believe that their right to life is a positive right so long as it requires something of you and making you wear a mask. But you believe that a fetus's right to life is a positive right so long as it requires something of the person hosting that fetus. Does this make sense? This is why it's a logical inconsistency, because you seem to only believe in... Okay, I'll let you go.
So let me ask you this, just so I can kind of dead this whole issue. So let's just say that I even conceded, which I'm not, but let's just say that I even conceded on this point and said, okay, it's the same thing. What's your point? Like, are you then just going to say, okay, then we shouldn't do this also? Then a woman shouldn't take an abortion pill? Then what's the point?
No. My point is that if you genuinely do believe that a fetus is a person just like anyone else is a person, that you believe that the right to life is a positive right, then you should be pro-mask. Because that would be saying, okay, I will take on the responsibility of preserving this other human being's life. But you don't care about that.
You might possibly preserve, right. You might possibly preserve someone else's right. But again,
it doesn't matter if you know.
Victoria, you constantly, you're interrupting me as well. So please let me finish. So what I'm saying is, again, we're now going on 50 minutes for this mask thing. And we haven't even gotten to the core argument here. So again, for someone to you would have to do something, and then that person would have to contract COVID, and then they may die from it. So some person may contract COVID from what you're doing, and then they may die from it, right? I mean, you're talking about something that's incredibly I forgot exactly what your phrase was, but you said it was severely lethal. When you're talking about people that are under the age of 65, it's like 0.5% chance of dying from COVID. So again, like it's subjective to say what is a lot or not a lot or whatever. But again, like my whole point is that there's nothing stopping you from doing anything that you need to protect yourself. You've already conceded that and said that, okay, there is nothing stopping you from protecting yourself. So that's why it's an unnecessary use of government force. You're trying to then compare that to an abortion bill where you are doing something intentionally that is going to kill another person, right? So, or it may kill another person. I mean, an abortion pill. What's the percentage of accuracy there? What is it? 98%? Like what is it?
Tyler, okay, here we go. Totally equivalent.
It's as we talk about this more and more, I feel like I'm coming up with more arguments to this, but this is such a weird subpoint that we're like overly focusing on. I guess Kyler could be like, well, if you think that we should force masks, then you think that we should force people to wear condoms as well? Right? So if you think that we should force the maximum amount of precautions in coronavirus, then you also believe that the government should force you to wear a condom and have birth control when you have sex? Is that the argument? That kind of, you could break it down to that point too. It's just like we're so far into this one point. It's like seems like a.
I am randomly taking the abortion pill. I don't know if I'm pregnant. I have an abortion. You are walking around.
I asked you a question.
Hold on.
Yeah, no, Tyler. Like we're sitting here on like a half an hour. I've had like I think I've brought up like 17 different points of analogies or whatever when it comes to this particular sub point of abortion. You know what I mean? It's like crazy.
I asked you a question. You didn't even answer my question.
Wait. Please let me speak.
I gotta be honest with you. I don't really blame Victoria. I really don't blame Victoria. I want to explain why, right? So like you guys got like a moderator for a fucking reason. And I would imagine if you're trying to, and I like open style, but like imagine if you're trying to have a conversation about abortion, you'd want to go through like a more logical path. So when she brought up this sub point, like moderator, or rather when you were like, hey, let's start like the beginning. Then it's like, okay, that does make sense. We kind of started with a bunch of sub points, and like Victoria's obviously tackling this debate in a way where she wants to win. Like that's the point of a debate, right? I understand it. The moderator's job, so that's her job. The moderator's job in a debate format is to reel it in and try to provide like a structured platform. So like he's failing here. I don't blame her at all for what she's doing. Yeah, I gotta piss though. Okay, I'm gonna take a pee. I'll be right back, and I'm gonna run a quick ad. I love you guys. I'll be right back. Drinking too much water. I like this freeze frame here.
Answer my question before you go into something, Victoria.
You're walking around without a mask on. You have COVID. You get someone else sick and they die from it. Are those equivalent?
Are you allergic to answering questions?
Tyler,
I asked you a question.
And I'm trying to explain my ideology behind my answer. And
I don't care about your ideology right now. I care about you answering my question. That's what I care about. Can you answer the question I asked you?
Yes. I just wish you were arguing in good faith, bro. Like, I genuinely want to understand your side.
Bro.
I don't know why you're being so antagonistic right now. Like, I genuinely...
I'm not being antagonistic. You are intentionally not answering my question.
Ask me the question again. What was it? I was trying to answer through another question. I apologize.
I don't know what this is, though.
What was it? James, what was the question I asked now? It was like 40 seconds ago because we went off the rails so much. I don't even remember the question now.
Yeah,
you refused to answer it.
It's hard for me to remember as well.
He's not even paying attention to the fucking debate.
Okay, well...
Talk about not arguing in good faith, Victoria.
Okay, I'm sorry. I genuinely did not mean for that to be like rude or dismissive. I'm just trying to explain my ideology. Again, I don't see how it's different for me to be arbitrarily taking the abortion pill, have an abortion, and then for you to just be randomly not wearing your mask give someone coronavirus and then them die from it. That seems pretty equivalent. You're depriving both people of life because of what you might deem as a selfish action. And in order to preserve my own rights to my own body and being able to do whatever I want to do without government interference.
Let me ask you this. What can a fetus do to protect themselves from the abortion pill?
Well, again, it doesn't matter because it's someone who is completely protecting themselves from COVID can still get it. So I'm saying in the situation where their protective gear did not work, you not wearing your mask gave this person COVID.
Okay. So nothing is stopping. So a fetus can't do anything to protect themselves against an abortion pill?
No.
Okay, but a person can do something.
Actually, well, technically, a fetus could. I mean, technically, there are failed abortions with the abortion pill. I think it's like 5%, but obviously, that's not intentional.
Can a fetus consciously do anything to protect themselves from abortion?
No, because the fetus is not conscious. Should we just segue into that?
Can a person do something to consciously protect themselves against COVID?
Yes, but again, this is a situation where that did not work. That did not work. The person still got COVID.
I don't care. I'm just asking you, can they do that? Can they do something?
You never answered my question. Is that morally wrong for you to give someone else COVID? They're taking all the necessary precautions.
Again,
they can't do anything else.
Now you're saying, oh, well, you gave them COVID. And I'm telling you that you
Wait, no. I'm sorry. You must have misheard me. I misheard me. I literally 5-10 seconds ago, we can roll back the clip. This is the analogy I'm giving you now. I am randomly taking the abortion pill. I have an abortion. You are randomly walking around without a mask. You give someone COVID and they die. I am asking you how those two things are not equivalent.
How do you prove that you gave them COVID and they died from it?
I think you might die if you just constantly took the abortion pill.
Analogy. They died because you were not wearing masks.
But what I'm saying is that it's disanalogous. What I'm saying is it's disanalogous because when it comes to the abortion pill, we know who killed that life, right? We know that the mother did because she's intentionally taking something.
But not wearing a mask does increase COVID deaths. So should the government be able to interfere and mandate masks?
I can't speak like more than 3 seconds without you interrupting me.
All right, let's just move on, Tyler. I don't think this is getting anywhere. I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying.
That's the first time that I've agreed with you. So so you want to go ahead and go into sentience and consciousness since that's your real argument.
Blood clots, yeah. Jesus Christ,
okay.
infection.
So what is your argument? So you're saying that a person
heavy bleeding, sounds a little rough. I'm gonna bleed out.
Okay, so define consciousness.
Consciousness, hey, that's like a cute little throwback. That's like a cute little Easter egg from the first debate. Consciousness is basically the brain's awareness of itself in the universe. And the circuit elements necessary for consciousness are not apparent until the 23-week period, meaning that obviously in the first trimester, a fetus is not conscious nor sentient.
Okay. So are you arguing? Okay, so you're basically talking about subjective experience. Okay. So all right. So are you arguing that to be recognized as a person, that you need to have the current capacity for consciousness or the prospective capacity for consciousness?
Well, so basically, in order to have the right to life, a right in which the positive right to life, I guess I should say, the right that requires something from others, you must be conscious. In order to have the positive right to life, you must be sentient.
Okay, so can you just directly answer my question? So
I'm assuming like I think we might have talked about this the other day. I don't know. We're getting into like a conversation about like, okay, like potential versus like potential consciousness versus like the actual potential versus non-potential, right? So you talk about like, oh, a coma patient, you wouldn't put them to death because they could potentially wake up. A fetus could potentially get consciousness if it was left to its own devices. So there's like, obviously, yeah, okay. I think that's where we're going here.
In order to be recognized as a person by your guidelines, do you need to have the current capacity for consciousness, or are you arguing for the prospective capacity?
I would say, well, define perspective capacity for me.
Perspective would be like of now or expected in the future.
I would say that you would have to currently have consciousness.
Okay, so you're arguing for the current capacity of consciousness.
Yes.
Okay, so someone like under general anesthesia doesn't have consciousness.
Right. And so here's the thing.
So by your guidelines, we would be able to, they're not a person and we could, kill them? I'm not trying to straw man.
No, I understand. And I'm actually really glad that you brought this up because this is something that I don't think I argued well enough in our first debate.
This is why I don't really like the consciousness argument.
Here's the thing, is that this is why it does become a bit of a false equivalency, I guess I should say, not on your behalf. I know it's obviously, like, I don't think you are making a falsely analogous argument at all. I think it's a fair question. But in the case of general anesthesia, that in order to keep that person alive, it is not really requiring something from someone else. So I think in our previous debate, you mentioned a coma.
Fucking dogs. Like, so if her point was, if she had another reason why she was pro-choice, and then she said, but I think we can get an abortion because the baby's or the fetus isn't conscious yet, then that's like, okay, that's just her cutoff point for when she's okay with it. That's different from basing your whole perspective on why you should get an abortion on like this consciousness thing. Also, I forgot to
right? Like, okay, someone who's in a coma is not conscious. Do we have the right to then kill that person? And a normal, nice human being would be like, well, no, that would be pretty fucking rude. And so I guess my point is, I mean, would you be okay with me addressing the coma analogy, or would you like me to?
No,
try
I'm
and
not arguing. I'm not. Well, I mean, technically, this is a medically induced coma, but I'm specifically talking about general anesthesia,
right? Medically
where there
induced
is no
coma.
sentience and there is no consciousness.
Right.
So my point that I was making is that if you admitted that you were arguing for the current capacity of consciousness, not the natural capacity or not the prospective capacity. So by your guidelines, so basically, I'm saying that you're saying that you need to have like characteristic X to be considered a person, and then
right.
Saying, if we remove characteristic X, then by your guidelines, they are not a person.
I would say that no one should be required to give up their body or resources in order to keep that person alive. Their positive right to life, and again, this is why the second half of my argument is still important here, even though I'm not subscribing to the bodily autonomy argument. If you do not have consciousness, your right to life is not necessarily a positive right. So when we're talking about putting someone under general anesthesia, let's say we put them under general anesthesia for 9 months. They're in a medically induced coma for 9 months, or
like, you could literally just make the argument of like, hey, I think that you should be able to get an abortion because I don't think that like a fetus fucking matters. And I think that we should have a realistic cutoff point of 23 weeks or whatever you said, because that's when you start to gain consciousness. Then I'd be like, okay, there. And then you make the argument about like from a perspective of like consequences or whatever. Like, there's no difference between coming on a girl's belly and like and getting an abortion because the sperm and egg are wasted. Like, you could probably run with that and be like, yeah, it's hard. It sounds pretty heartless, but at least it's logically consistent.
Have an accident, they're in a coma for 9 months. After I think about the 2-week period of having a coma, they do declare it a vegetative state, because they understand that at that point there's absolutely no consciousness. The person has the inability to feel pain. The person is not aware of themselves. They would not even be aware of their death, and they classify it as a vegetative state because they understand that at that point the family can choose to pull the plug. Because no one should be legally required to give up their own resources to keep someone alive who is not conscious, who is not aware of themselves or. Can you just?
So I would say that when it comes to like pulling the plug, wouldn't be the same as like actively trying to kill somebody. It would be like removing the support system. I guess maybe you can draw a conclusion there of removing the mother as the support system from the baby. Maybe, although you're really kind of just like actively trying to kill the particular thing. Okay.
Can you just attack I'm not talking about a vegetative state or coma. I'm specifically referring to.
It could be general anesthesia as well. I was just using that real world example.
But I mean, fundamentally, you're leaving it to its own device. So like, I would say that like in that scenario, it's the same as just not having an abortion.
Under general anesthesia,
if you're under it
by your guidelines, they are not a person if they do not have consciousness. Correct?
If you would be under generalized anesthesia for 9 months, I do not think that anyone else should have to sacrifice their resources.
The time doesn't matter. The time doesn't matter. The time doesn't matter.
No, it does. It does. In order to.
Oh, so now you're saying.
Equivalent.
Okay, so what you're saying. Okay, so this is what you're saying. Hold on. Let me say, because Victoria, you talk for like 2 minutes at a time, and then you only let me talk for like 5 seconds. So basically, what you're saying is that now you're about to commit a special pleading fallacy without you even knowing it. So you said that you're arguing for the current capacity of consciousness. And then I said, okay, so then by that guideline, if you're not arguing the prospective capacity for consciousness, then if we take away consciousness, which is taken away under general anesthesia, that would not be a person. So even when you try to relate it and bring in, oh, well, my bodily autonomy argument doesn't matter because that's not a person anymore, so it doesn't apply to them. So are you arguing? Because now you're saying time matters. So if you're saying time matters, now what you're conflating current capacity for consciousness with the prospective capacity for consciousness, which you couldn't do. You would be committing a special pleading fallacy.
Well,
so are you?
Oh, they haven't kissed yet. No,
I apologize if I answered your question incorrectly. I don't think I fully understood what you were asking. But my point is, and I will repeat this, even though I
just asked you a question. I just asked, can you please answer my question?
I said, Tyler, hey, I've never raised my voice in a debate with you. I will argue how I want to argue. I need you to not interrupt me, and I need you to let me speak for about 5 seconds.
Why are you getting?
Tyler, you do have to let her finish. So it's totally cool. It's common on the channel. If someone asks a question and the other person doesn't answer it, then they just let them finish, and then they bring up, hey, I noticed you answered somebody's question, but it wasn't mine. Something like that.
The only reason he's interjecting is because Victoria's upset. He's not really listening.
Okay, listen, Tyler, I'm talking right now, which means I need you to be great. So the idea here is, it's totally cool to bring it up, but you do have to actually let them answer it, and then you can come back with saying, "Hey, I noticed you clearly didn't answer my question." What
the fuck do you have to let them answer? I don't understand. This is the most inconcise. Like, literally, if like Victoria didn't complain there, he wouldn't have said anything. It's just all about complain. Like, what is this guy doing? His taxes? He's like, what the fuck is this guy doing right now?
It's totally cool.
Sure.
I'm just gonna be honest with you, Tyler. If I was in this situation, I would have probably been incredibly rude to this fucking guy. Like, I would have said, like, what the fuck are you doing right now? Like, you're only, like, interjecting, like, randomly when somebody complains. Like, are you listening? Are you eating Chinese food? Are you doing your taxes? Like, is this something that, like, why do you feel like you should be hosting this debate and monetizing it if you're putting in, like, the bare minimum here? You just exist. You're existing. That's all you're doing. I don't understand. That's what I would have said.
Apologize, Tyler.
I would have said, like, you're fucking worthless. I don't understand. Like, why are you here? I'm not trying to be rude.
I think I maybe misunderstood your question, but my point at the end of the day is that I do not think...
Like, honestly, like, a cat could have done what he did. Like, randomly interjecting at particular moments is something like a cat could totally do. They could just go, meow, and it's like, oh, you're right.
I do not think that the right to life is a positive right if someone is unconscious. I don't think, and I wouldn't say that bringing up time in this situation is a special pleading fallacy, because in order to make, just like I would never accuse you, remember when we were talking about my analogy earlier and you said that's falsely analogous?
I imagine she brought up the amount of time because that's like the gestation period in the womb, right? Is that the right word? But like you would be like, okay, so then by that logic of 9 months and then you could pull the plug, you're saying you're okay with the 9 months until abortion. But if your argument's like 12 weeks, then you have to go based off of like the 12 weeks argument when it comes to somebody being on life support, right? Does that make sense?
Inviting someone into your home and be forcing someone into your home. I'm basically making the same qualifications to your argument. Your argument is not entirely equivalent, because we're not telling women, oh, hey, you only have to be pregnant for a few hours and then you can give birth. We're telling women, hey, you have to provide this baby with resources and with your body for 9 months. So I think that in this case, time is incredibly relevant. And I think any woman would laugh at the idea that time in this situation would be a special pleading fallacy. So I don't think that women should be required to give up their bodies, or I should say people, sorry, I know that everyone can get pregnant. I don't think that people
Victoria, I love Victoria. That was funny though. She felt the need to make sure she was inclusive of trans people in that. That's nice. I mean, it's nice of her. I'm not giving her shit for it. It's just so funny.
Should be required to give up their bodies and resources for 9 months for a being that is not yet conscious. So yeah,
Am I good?
That's my argument. Yeah, you can go.
Okay. So are you arguing for the current capacity or the prospective capacity?
Why don't you go ahead and define both those terms for me so I can make sure I'm answering.
Current capacity.
She's asking you to define terms, Pyler. That's like a.
She means that it happens in the moment. It has to be current. It has to be currently happening. Prospective capacity would be of now or in the future.
I would say.
And if you conflate those two things, you would be committing a special pleading fallacy.
Okay. Well, again, I would just reiterate my previous point. So I guess I would be answering the second one, prospective capacity.
Okay. So originally you said current capacity. So now you're saying prospective capacity?
Well, I still don't fully understand the question that you're asking, if I'm being
this is why I'm saying. This is why I'm saying. Okay. So this is why I'm saying that you're committing a special pleading fallacy. So you argued originally that I asked you, okay, consciousness is what makes a person a person. So, okay. So if consciousness is what makes a person, not my argument, your argument. So if consciousness is what makes a person, I asked you if you were arguing consciousness in the current capacity or the prospective capacity. And the prospective meaning of now or in the future. Current meaning that it has to happen now. You said the current capacity. So I'm like, okay. So if you take away that characteristic, if you take away consciousness, like you are under general anesthesia, then by your own guidelines, you would not be considered a person. Then you committed a special pleading fallacy by saying, well, no, time matters. And if you're talking about time, then time is you're talking about prospective capacity. So if you're saying time matters, then and still trying to argue the natural or the current capacity, that's a special pleading fallacy. Now, if you're going to concede or change your argument and say that, okay, well, you know what, it's not current capacity, I believe in prospective capacity.
Couples counseling,
yeah, that's what it is.
At least the counselor would be engaging with them more.
Capacity.
Well, I want to make it clear, I'm not changing or conceding in any way. I remember earlier when you asked me this question, I answered your question with my stance. You got mad at me for not answering your question. And I think the biggest reason I didn't want to answer your question is because I don't fully understand what you mean when you're saying prospective capacity. That gives me more insight, though. Thank you. So I would say that clearly from the beginning, I've been arguing about prospective capacity just because.
I mean, prospective capacity is basically like potential capacity, right? That's it, right?
Because again, I do not believe that someone should be required to give up their body or their resources for an unconscious being so that they can fulfill their potential for life.
Okay. So you're arguing prospective capacity.
Sure.
So you have to have it now or in the future.
Sure.
Okay, so a fetus in the future will have the capacity.
Right. See, this is why I didn't want to say that though, because again,
because you're logically inconsistent. You would have to.
No,
concede.
It's not because I'm logically inconsistent. Again, you take someone in a coma. You take someone in a coma.
That is logically inconsistent. I'm just saying, like Kyler, it is logically inconsistent, and I think a flaw in arguing in general with some people is that they don't want to answer reasonable questions because they know that those questions are going to dismantle their argument. And I think that, like, if Victoria could understand that, she could come up with a great reason why you should be pro-choice. I'm just saying, though. But that is logically inconsistent, yeah. It's, like, prospective capacity, potential capacity, that means that if you're okay with somebody, like if it's a coma patient, by her logic, you could just go, you can kind of go like a little yeet. You could literally charge your phone because you wouldn't need an outlet to keep them on life support.
That person is completely non-conscious, doesn't even have a minimal conscious state. If they're in a vegetative state, I think that it is the family's right to deny resources to that person, pull the plug, and which would obviously cause that person's death. I think that if someone is in a vegetative state for 9 months, the family should not be legally required to.
Well, you also didn't even say vegetative state. You actually just brought up anesthetics.
Ensure that person's life by providing resources for that person. Even though they have the potential for waking up in 9 months, even though they have the potential for consciousness, I do not think that, I don't.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that, so now you're putting special parameters on your prospective capacity.
No.
So now you're saying that, so just a timeline of what happened. So you originally say that it's the current capacity. Then you say, well, no, it has to do with time. So it's like, okay, so then you're arguing the prospective capacity. Then you're like, yes.
30.
Okay, so it's the prospective capacity either of now or in the future. And I stated that multiple times. And then you said, yes, of now or in the future to have consciousness. So I'm like, okay.
Well, see, this is why.
Hold on. Victoria,
sorry,
can I finish my thing? So then I say, and you say.
Also, if you're in a coma, I believe. Okay, so if you're in a coma, I might not be 100% true on this, but I'm pretty sure. You fill out some paperwork for somebody to have like the rights to what you want done. I know I'm not being very professional about my whatever. I can't remember specifically what it is. But you're giving that person consent to kill you instead of live in a vegetative state. I'm pretty sure you do that. So like, I don't think a baby gives the consent to be aborted. If the baby could, then that's a whole other conversation, doggy.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so then I say a fetus has the prospective capacity to have consciousness, and then you say no. So you are committing a special pleading fallacy by far. Now you are saying, well, wait a minute. There's a certain amount of time. So if it's 9 months, then that's too much. So you're saying 9 months is too much. So if we knew that someone was going to awaken in 9 months, or they were going to come out of general anesthesia or whatever, you would say that, well, 9 months is too long. We should be able to pull the plug on that person.
Yeah, well, I would just say that I don't think that the family should be forced to give up their resources to ensure that person's potential consciousness.
Who said anything about their family? Who said anything about
power of attorney? Thank you.
Because again, I'm trying to make this analogy more equivalent. If it was possible to take an embryo out of a woman,
I have no family, Victoria. So I have no family.
Tyler, I'm begging you to try and understand my point. Like genuinely, I want this to be a good faith debate. I'm begging you to understand my point. So just like how I just have to be honest here, and I like Victoria a lot, but like I people try to pull some of this shit on me all the time. They'll bring up really shitty analogies, and they're like, I need you to subscribe to my analogy because I need it to work for my argument to work. I fucking hate it. That's how like I've had conversations with like fucking communists who say like dumb shit. And they'll constantly propose these bizarre, insane scenarios that you can deconstruct with like one sentence. Like I've had a conversation and I was like, yeah, I believe like individuals should have like individual rights, but I also believe as like a society that we should all like work together. And they're like, well, by that logic, if you could kill all brown people and it would make things better, then that would be okay. By your logic, it's like, no, I believe that like that goes against what I'm saying. And then there was a really good one where this fucking kid, what did he do? He was telling me, he was like, there's a scenario where we might have to kill somebody based on my logic because they were performing poorly at their job. And in his scenario, I was like, well, they just get fired and they wouldn't be in that job anymore. So they're not a net loss. And he's like, no, in this scenario, they're constantly rehired in a different company at the same exact job despite a failing performance. And I just lost. And I'm like, that's completely irrational. It's like, no, you have to go along with my argument because I need it to win. You understand what I'm saying? And that's kind of like where we're at right now. Take embryos out of women and incubate them and they would become full-blown babies without the woman. There wouldn't be a debate here. People would just do that and it'd be great and the woman could walk away, no harm, no foul. That's not the reality. So just like we can't act like someone under general anesthesia or in a coma could just survive without the help of anyone for 9 months. Like we can't pretend that would ever be a plausible situation. We need to make it more equivalent. So in this analogy, the coma analogy, in order to make it equivalent to a woman sacrificing her body and her resources, there would need to be someone there giving up resources to keep this person alive. And I do not think that anyone should be required to give up their resources to keep someone alive who is unconscious, who is not aware of themselves or their existence.
Okay.
Can I respond?
Yes.
Okay, so in your, I mean, you went into other things. So, I mean, you believe in universal healthcare, right?
I do.
Okay, so I mean, in your ideal world, you have universal healthcare. I mean, you fight for that. So if you had universal healthcare, that person, it's no one else's resources but their own. I mean, so the state or whoever or people would be contributing to that. So they would be in a coma for 9 months, but you're still saying hold the plug.
Well, I'm not talking about America with universal healthcare. I'm talking about America
this is your own world that you.
I think you probably could have gone after whatever like classification, like positive rights. She generally supports positive rights, so for her to not support positive rights in an abortion context means that she would be logically inconsistent, right? If her argument is specifically positive versus negative rights. Because it's funny that she's trying to catch you on the assumption that you prefer negative rights, which I think I guess you generally do as somebody more conservative. But then in this situation, she would generally prefer, in general, she would prefer positive rights. But why not in this situation? These are fucking analogies are insane.
Live in. So hold on.
No, I'm sorry. I'm trying to create a situation where someone being in a coma would be perfectly equivalent to a woman being pregnant. The issue here, Tyler, is that those situations aren't equivalent. Even in my analogy, no one's body is changing.
What if in the middle of this conversation, she was like, Tyler, I'm pregnant. And then you guys went, oh, shit. And then you're like, you know what? I actually do want abortions because it's your kid in this analogy.
The result of keeping this comatose patient alive. You know, a woman isn't risking her life. A woman isn't risking postpartum depression, which is incredibly common. So these are always going to be false equivalents.
Is that my microphone doing that? Or is that his?
But to help you better understand my argument, an argument that I know you will never agree with.
I understand your argument. You're just not understanding mine.
Okay.
Or actually, I'm sorry. I take that back. You do understand my argument. You are just intentionally being disingenuous. So
no, I'm genuinely not trying to.
You already know, Victoria. I've already proven that you're committing a special pleading fallacy. And
no, you haven't, Tyler. You proved that I did not like the question that you gave me because the question, it's just like whenever I was asking you about positive.
Why didn't you like the question?
For negative rights.
Victoria, what's a special pleading fallacy?
A special pleading fallacy is when you make special exceptions for no reason without justification. I'm telling you, the time frame is justified because the time frame is so crucial to whether a woman chooses to have an abortion or not. Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. I'm saying time is not a special pleading fallacy because it is justified in this conversation. A woman isn't sacrificing her body only for a few hours. A woman sacrifices her body for 9 months. So talking about keeping someone alive in a coma for a few hours or whatever it would be wouldn't be equivalent. Time is relevant here. It's justified. It's not a special pleading fallacy.
Okay, so time matters.
Yes.
In this argument about keeping somebody alive and resources, I'm pretty sure that you're not responsible for somebody's fucking hospital bills unless you're married to them, right? Because we're going off of this whole family thing. I don't know. It's it's a very complicated analogy because we already talked about power of attorney and whatnot.
Okay, so what is the time? Because you said hours, and then you were talking about
you just don't pay. Eat.
9 months. So what's the cutoff time?
Well, no, I'm just saying that I think if someone
it's
is
just
in a coma
it's just so loaded, and we've been talking about these weird analogies for so long. It's crazy.
In a perfectly equivalent situation, a person's in a coma, their family is giving
this conversation so far, content-wise, as far as how much we've covered has been about fucking 10 minutes.
Resources.
You know what I mean? We could have gotten all this out in 10 minutes, and so far we're at an hour. And again, blaming the moderator.
They are unaware of themselves. They are unaware of the world around them. Even if you somehow magically have a guarantee that they will wake up in 9 months, I don't think the family should be subjected to providing resources for that person to keep them alive.
Okay, so you just again talked and you didn't answer my question. So two things that I want to bring up.
I fully did answer your question.
So two things I want to bring up. So for one, you keep talking about the family is responsible. I'm telling you that in this situation, if someone doesn't have family, they're not responsible. There is no family there. Right. So for one, in this scenario that I'm giving you,
I guess she could clap back with well, the mom is the family. So the fetus always has a family that would be responsible. She could clap back with that.
Is responsible for them. So that's the first thing. Second thing.
Then it's falsely equivalent. I'm helping you make an equivalent analysis.
Just to be fair, just to hear the rest from Tyler.
Hey, he did it.
Okay. So I don't even remember the second point because again you interrupted. What was it? Oh, but you were talking about time. So I asked you specifically, what is the cutoff time? So you said that 9 months is too much. Okay. So what time is okay? Any amount of time?
I would say 12. Well, 12 weeks is the time frame that I think is okay to get an abortion in. But obviously that's falsely.
I'm not talking about abortion.
So for the coma analogy.
Yes.
Yeah, you could have just
Well,
been
this
like,
is
yeah,
where
so
it becomes
12
falsely-
weeks in the analogy of the coma, right? That would be her direct relation.
equivalent,
Yeah.
because with, you know, if I were to give, sorry, I'm trying to answer your question, I genuinely am, but I want to make sure that these are equivalent situations, because they're not. You know, we see in a fetus past the 12-week mark, the fetus gains more consciousness, but in a comatose patient, the more time passes, the less likely they are to regain consciousness.
All right,
So I just want to make sure that, yeah.
That's a distinction with no difference.
Well, okay, legally right now
argument,
for comatose patients, you can pull the plug, and as soon as they enter a vegetative state, which is only a few weeks.
But again, pulling the plug isn't actively trying to kill somebody. It's like leaving it to its own devices, right?
I don't care about what's currently legal. We're arguing not what is legal, what should be legal, right?
I just think you're getting a little bit too. I think you're getting a little bit too lost in this analogy, and you're not trying to understand my.
Victoria, this gaslighting that you constantly do is not going to help you here.
I'm genuinely not trying to gaslight.
I know that I'm asking something up.
No,
I'm just trying to understand.
So let me restate everything.
Like, when does somebody become like considered in a? Okay, so coma refers to a state in which a person appears to be asleep but cannot be awakened. Persistent vegetative state refers to another form of altered consciousness in which the person appears to be awake but does not respond meaningfully to the outside world. In this condition, the person's eyes may be open, maybe some yawning, grunging, or vocal. In most cases, the patient is alive, but the brain doesn't function. I don't think that, because she seemed like, I think that she made this argument that you're considered to be in a vegetative state after a certain number of weeks in a coma, but that doesn't seem to be the case. There seems to be, based on what I'm looking up, a distinction between brain activity between someone who's in a coma and a vegetative state.
So what I'm saying is that you said that consciousness is what makes a person, and you said that it needed to be current capacity. Then you said, okay, well, wait a minute, it's not.
Tyler, we were all
capacity.
here.
Then you said it's not current capacity, it's perspective capacity. It's the perspective capacity. Hold on, can I finish? Can you stop interrupting me, please? So then you say that is the perspective capacity. Okay, so of now or in the future. Then you said yes. Then I said, okay, so a fetus has the perspective capacity to have consciousness. And then you said, well, no, wait a minute. Because if the person's in a coma or whatever, then I said, okay, so you said that time matters. And you said that 9 months is too long, which it's not 9 months until they have consciousness, right? It's like 24 weeks, but either way. So then you said, okay, so 9 months is too long. So really, when it comes to consciousness or sentience or whatever you want to call it, it's whatever 24 weeks is. How many is that? Like 5 months, 4 months, something like that? So 5 months maybe? So it's really 5 months. So you're saying that 5 months, if someone is in a coma or whatever, and you know that I specifically was talking about general anesthesia, but you talked about a coma, so that's fine. So if you're saying that you know that this person will awake and regain consciousness in 5 months, you are saying that no, you should be able to pull the plug on that person, even knowing that they would awaken and have consciousness in 5 months. If that is what your argument is, then I think that your morals are just very different than my morals. So I would gladly have you explain how that's moral.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I would say that because it's requiring resources of, again, in my analogy, I understand that this might not be how it always is, but in my analogy, I don't think that the people should be legally forced to give up their resources to keep that person alive for a few more months until they're conscious. I think that they should be given the right to pull the plug.
What people?
The family members. It doesn't matter.
Again, no family members here.
Tyler,
no
okay. I'm begging you.
We know.
I'm begging you to debate in good faith here. I'm begging you to debate
Victoria,
in good faith.
I'm not the one
family is the mother. The family is the mother. In this analogy, the family is like it is equivalent to the mother of the fetus. Or is this making sense to you? Just like the fetus is reliant on the mother.
Yeah, she has a good point there. I think it took her a while to get. She could have mentioned that originally. Yeah, no. In like a scenario where there is family, the mother being equivalent to the family. So in this scenario, there's always family in the scenario. Right.
For life or whatever, the person in the coma is relying on their family for resources.
They're relying
on
doctors.
I fucking gotta pay more attention.
I'm trying to make it equivalent. I'm trying to, just like how you said.
Already equivalent.
We've got about 5 minutes before we go into Q&A.
Jesus,
Okay.
we didn't get this. Is fucking. We didn't talk about anything here. This is poopy. This is doo-doo diarrhea.
Maybe
I'm switching games for a little bit,
but roughly in that.
I want her.
Tyler. Just like, see, what you're doing right now is like earlier. If you had said, "Hey, that's falsely equivalent," it'd be more like if you force someone to your home. That'd be like if I was like, "Wait a minute, buddy. I would never force someone into my home. I would only invite them in." Like, you're intentionally missing the point of what I'm saying. I'm saying that in a situation where the family was providing resources, whether it be money, whatever, in order to keep one of their family members alive in a coma, even if they knew that person was going to wake up in a few months, I do not think that they should be legally not given the right to pull the plug. They should be legally able to deprive that person of resources if that person is completely unconscious, if that person is completely unaware of themselves and the universe.
That's not the same.
Just a little bit of boomer wow, okay?
They didn't force that person to be in a coma, right? So you forced that baby to be in a state of dependency.
We're just gonna feel it out for a little bit.
That person who is in the coma to be in a state of dependency. So you're completely missing that. You haven't even attacked that. That was my core argument. You weren't even.
You brought up the generally
Victoria, you literally talk for 2 to 3 minutes at a time, and you do not let me speak. So that's the first thing. So you did not attack that. That you're making it more disanalogous the more that you talk. So they are not. You did not force that person in the coma into a state of dependency. So anything that you're trying to make, like you're just making it more disanalogous, and you are really arguing in bad faith by not just saying, okay, and I asked you very specifically, what is the time frame? Is the time frame anything? That's what I'm asking you. So if we're talking about a person in a coma, which is really your analogy, but if we're talking about a person in a coma, what is the time frame? Since you said 9 months was too long and 5 months is too long, at what point should they be able to cut off that person's life?
I would say as soon as that person enters like the vegetative state where they are completely unconscious, I would say that at that point the family can refuse resources to that person, which in a way would be
that has nothing to do with so you're not understanding the thought experiment.
No, I am. I'm totally understanding what you're saying.
You're not, just because of what you just said. So in this, remember, we know for certain.
I'm saying at any point, Tyler, that's your answer. I answered.
1 sec, just to have order.
Okay, so
at any point they should be able to deprive resources to that person.
Even if we know in 5 months they will regain consciousness, you're okay with saying you can kill them.
I would say that you can deprive them of your resources.
It's not their resources. What resources are you talking about?
It is. I'm saying,
taxpayer resources?
I'm trying to make it equivalent to a mother giving up her resources to a fetus. I'm trying to make it equivalent to a mother giving up her resources to a fetus.
This has nothing to do with people.
Tyler, I think the issue here is that you're ignoring the whole point.
Okay, we have got both of you talking at the same time. We do have to have an orderly end, otherwise we're just going to jump into Q&A. So if you guys want to have maybe a few minutes to wrap up kind of with some drawing the threads of this debate together on each side, we can do that. But
he's asking, he's like, hey, if you guys could wrap it up and explain what you're saying the whole time, because I checked out. I checked out almost instantly.
There's a lot of overlap right now. So what we can do
I checked out a while ago. I really need you guys to restate what you're saying.
If that sounds good to you guys, which I highly recommend it just because there's so much overlap, is that we can give 2 minutes to Victoria, 3 minutes if you want, 4 minutes even if you want, and then the same amount of time for Tyler.
I would say
what'd you guys say
in this debate is not recognizing the sacrifice of pregnancy. Whether you agree with it or not, by being pregnant, you are giving your resources to another being so that that being can eventually become conscious and have life. And so in my analogy, I am basically saying that if someone is completely unconscious, if they are unaware of themselves in the universe, if they have no brain activity, if they are completely unconscious, would be unaware of their death, I do not think that someone else should have to provide resources to that person in order to keep them alive. Like, I don't think the family member should be able to provide or should be legally required to keep that person alive. And whether you call that pulling the plug, whatever, that is my stance. I do not think that the right to life is a positive right until someone is conscious.
You got it. Thank you very much. And we'll give the same amount to Tyler for his wrap up. That was only about 45 seconds. But so if you're able to keep
I'd like my 2 or 3 minutes if you're able to give that to me, James.
If Victoria, if you're yielding the last minute or I should say a minute 45 or so, we can give Tyler the same amount of time, or I should say minute 15. Okay, so Tyler, if you want 2 minutes.
Okay, so just to be clear, Victoria, you argue in bad faith. You knew
Jesus Christ.
You knew that you committed a logical fallacy, a special pleading fallacy. You knew that you were logically inconsistent, and because of that, you are instead of just this is the thing that I hate the most about when you specifically argue, is that it seems that, like, instead of just conceding the point, which is fine, you can concede a point. Like, instead of just conceding the point and saying, you know what, okay, that was logically inconsistent, you just want to double down and just talk about irrelevancies or try and make things more disanalogous, or to try and gaslight into being right. So here's what it is.
It's all the fucking.
You said that time is an issue.
All these trigger words.
So you said, okay, if someone, if we knew that someone would regain consciousness in 5 months, you said that, well, no, we should still be able to deprive them of life. We should really kill them.
That's actually a good point too, because like in these scenarios of these like comatose patients, there is like generally the chance of the baby actually like not dying is like 100%, dog. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to come out. Like, if we knew that in a coma scenario that person would come out in 9 months, ethically you'd be like, yeah, totally, that person needs to be able to go through their term.
I don't know
why I didn't consider that.
Even if we knew that, we should still be able to kill them. And then you keep talking about the family. And I told you it has nothing to do with the family. Victoria, if I
it's been such a mess that like I don't know if you specifically made a point or if you guys have been it seems like you guys are so all over the place that like there's not like a ton of concise points being made. It's just a fucking shit show. You know what I mean? And so it's like hard to come to these like this is a reasonable point. It makes perfect sense. It's just been such a fucking shit show.
Kind of wreck, and then they had to put me, or I was in some kind of coma, and they knew that I would wake up in 5 months. You are still saying, well, no, you should be able to. It's the taxpayer dollars or whatever you want to say that it is. Nope, you should be able to kill that person. That I find to be completely immoral. It's 1,000% immoral. Even when I said, okay, you believe in universal health care. You believe that people should pay that and that people should be able to have a hospital or whatever on taxpayer dollar.
30 seconds.
Okay, but even still in that, you said, oh, well, I don't even want to answer that because we don't live in that scenario. So you do not understand what arguing in good faith is. I think that it's very apparent that you care more about not admitting that you are wrong than you do actually having some type of discourse and understanding if you yourself are wrong. So yeah, I just find that to be a huge disappointment. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
All right, in time. So with that, thanks for your questions, folks. We appreciate it, and we're going to go through as many of these as humanly possible. So we do appreciate them, and we really do want to honor them. And so if we have the most, I hate to ask both Victoria and Tyler if you're able to give the most pithy responses. That is most ideal.
I don't know what pithy means.
Just concise and with a punch.
Okay.
And Soldier of Science, thanks for your question. Said Tyler, should men be able to defend the pro?
But how the fuck is he even going to know if you're going to give concise answers? Like, he didn't even know if you guys were concise before. He was just like, he clocked out. He was eating like Chinese food and doing his taxes. How the fuck does he even know what's going on?
Life position.
Of course, absolutely. Because
what's my final take? Like, okay, so, you know, I don't really think we had a conversation there because it was like the moderator somehow made the conversation even worse. You guys, there were like really nothing like there was no what's the point of a moderator, right? To like keep things on course, to like make sure like everybody like I don't know. I guess in this scenario, make sure there's like good faith arguments. We got to like 2 arguments. You know what I mean? It's just terrible. I don't even like want to say that like I don't like want to say like oh Tyler won. Like I don't know. I just feel like this was a fucking mess. Like I think you made better points. I also think that like the moderator was diarrhea. You know, I don't know.
You just have to know what the pro-life position is.
But like, so we got to like 2 points. That's the problem. We didn't even explore like everything. We got to like 2 points and then we were done. And that's like the biggest problem, I think. I want to say thank you so much, guys, to all my Patreons, and a special shout out to my Papa XL Patreons. Without all you guys, I would just be some fat dude screaming into a microphone. So thank you so much, guys. Mwah. I love you all.
I want Papa Gut to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face,